Pierce, President and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce serving Middletown, Monroe, and Trenton. Welcome to our forum. This will be for
behind the screen.
School Board. As we set them up alphabetically, I think this is the first time I've ever done this, where the first person starts with an L.
Oh.
Yeah. And
that's
usually
unusual.
there are no U's.
That's true.
There's no U in
That means I get to go first, Anita.
In order for you to participate, we have some of these cards for you that tell us our topics. Amanda has a few of those. If you'd like to write a question down, if you raise your hand, she will get that to you. If it was already asked, we'll set it aside. If time allows, I will send it to Lenny, and he will hopefully get it in. So I want to thank you for coming. I want to thank the City of Middletown for making the room available to us. I want to thank, excuse me,
Choke up when
I
you
want to
talk
thank
about
Lenny for conducting this evening's session, and I certainly want to thank the candidates for putting your name in the hat and in the ring to do this job in this position as the City Council. So thank you so much for volunteering for this. And Lenny, it's all yours.
All right. Welcome back to the Candidates Forum, sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce serving Middletown, Monroe, and Trenton. And Rick Pierce, President, thank you for putting this all together. And again, our thanks to the City of Middletown for their accommodations for putting this together. And again, candidates, we thank all of you for putting forth your time and effort and expenditures for wanting to make our schools and our community better. You are all to be commended for that. Just to go over the rules for tonight, they are the same as for City Council. Everybody gets a 2-minute open. We have everybody here tonight, so you will have 2 minutes to present your opening statement. Questions will be asked of all of you. We'll start with Mrs. McNeil first and then rotate through who gets asked first. And you'll have 1 minute to answer. If you go over that 1 minute, the lights behind you will come on, just to give you an indication that your time is up. We'll try to let you finish that thought. And if you go longer than we think necessary, I'll have to cut you off. And then you will have 1 minute at the end of our session for your closing statement. We will be taking questions from the audience, and if they have a question they want to ask, they'll get it to the Chamber of Commerce staff. And if the question is not similar to one that we're asking or has been asked, we will certainly try to get it in the time allotted. So those are the ground rules. If everybody's ready, we're going to start off. And Katie McNeil, we'll start with your 2-minute opening statement.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Katie McNeil. I grew up in Webster Groves, Missouri, in a very progressive public school district. I came to Miami University in my first day in college in botany class. My major, my husband Michael sat behind me 45 years ago. We left Ohio after graduation from Miami and lived in Indiana, Georgia, New York, Wisconsin. We came back to Ohio with 2 children and one on the way, and we interviewed the school superintendent. We were looking for a strong public school to meet the needs of our children. And my background, educational background, I have a master's in education from the State University of New York in Albany, and was an environmental educator, outdoor educator for one of my careers. The last 16 years I've been involved with business as an owner of a manufacturing company. And I'm starting a next business. I believe in lifelong learning. I believe that we need to give students, young people, the best chance they have to succeed in whatever they want to do. We've had 3 children graduate from Middletown High School. They've done very well. They had a solid education here, and I want to continue to provide educational opportunities for every child that comes in our doors. So I've enjoyed the 20 years I've had on school board. I still have the energy and the interest in continuing to meet the needs of children, working with the many changes that happen. I understand the role of a school board member as one who hires the superintendent and treasurer in Ohio and develops policy in collaboration with the community. So the school board member is a liaison with the community, and I think I do that through many of the organizations and activities that I'm involved with. So,
Katie McNeil, thank you. Todd Moore, your 2-minute opening statement.
Sure, thank you. Thank you very much. Todd Moore, I too want to thank the Chamber for hosting this forum, and I look forward to answering your questions this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, over the last 10 years, I've had extensive experience working in public education. I worked 3 years here in the district as a long-term sub, where I learned firsthand the importance of teaching. I also was the chair for the Ohio After School Network, where I chaired the communications committee and traveled the state. I've been a Mott Foundation scholar where I learned firsthand the power of collaborative governance. And I've also worked with more than 20 schools across Cincinnati working to implement after-school programs. I've also been an aggressive fundraiser. Recognizing our challenges in literacy, I helped raise $20,000 for kindergarten readiness. I also raised $20,000 for Cincinnati State so that our students would be able to graduate with financial education. I also work with our community partners at the Community Building Institute, where I helped secure a $1.2 million grant from the Ohio Department of Education. As a member of the board, I'll focus on leadership. I believe that we must strengthen our school climate and communication. I'll focus on fiscal responsibility. I will use your tax dollars wisely, and I'll look for opportunities to leverage funds in the district. I'll also focus on community engagement. I'll work with our partners to align district goals, and I'll focus on innovation so that we stay true to our mission to always look for ways to improve academic achievement for all students. With these goals in mind, I look forward to working with others. I believe that I can facilitate change, and I look forward to serving our kids and students here in the district. Thank you very much.
Todd Moore, thank you. Michelle Novak, your 2 minutes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Michelle Novak. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for hosting this event tonight. I'd also like to thank everyone who made it a priority to come tonight, and for those people watching at home. So I'm an exceptional writer and talented at writing budgets, financial forecasts, and interpreting them, but unfortunately I've never been accused of being an outstanding speaker, which is why I am reading these cards right now. So really, I want to try to give you as much information about me so you can get to know me in a minute and 30 seconds. So at 19, I was a single mother, and I put myself through school at Wright State University. By the time I was a senior, I was the president's scholar. I graduated summa cum laude with a degree in corporate finance. I served as the Student Honors Association president, chaired major multicultural events, and served as one of 2 student trustees selected by the governor of Ohio out of 17,000 students to sit on the Wright State University Board of Trustees, where I served with many distinguished business leaders in the Dayton community. I also, I continued my education and got my master's in public administration, where I went to school with several nonprofit leaders in Dayton and in Cincinnati. The public health commissioner of Miami County, the mayor of Dayton went through my program, and multiple other volunteer coordinators and fundraisers throughout Dayton and Cincinnati. After graduation, I'm a little out of order. Okay. After graduation, I got married, my family grew, and I decided to use my skills to benefit my community, to benefit the schools, and to give back. I've done that in multiple capacities, volunteering as team treasurer. I pulled hundreds of documents together, put together a budget, made sure it was transparent, and did things like I would want them done in a professional organization. My profession is, as a grant writer, I do that part-time, and I work with organizations that I want to support. So as a grant writer, we do strategic planning, we do program planning, program evaluation, and I think that all of those skills are going to be important as a board member, because I believe that's our role.
Okay, I'm going to have to cut you off right there.
Told you you'd have to
Yeah,
tap me.
you did forewarn. You may go. All right. Anita Scheibert, your 2 minutes, please.
Hello, my name is Anita Scheibert, and I thank the Chamber of Commerce for inviting me to this event, and I thank all of you for taking time out of your evening to be here. I come in kind of a unique position here, and since it was all in the paper, the cat's out of the bag anyway, so I am the oldest candidate here, which means that I'm old, but I'm also seasoned, so you can think of it either way. I was born and raised in Middletown. I married my husband, Richard, and we celebrated our 40th anniversary last Sunday. We have 3 grown daughters who all attended University of Dayton, and they're probably the proudest achievement that I have. I graduated from Miami University in 1971. Probably many of you weren't even born then. And I, too, put myself through school. I'm very proud to say that that was my responsibility. I went on to Xavier University and got a master's degree in school counseling. So for the years in between, I have worked either one or both of those positions. I've worked in public and private school. I've worked at Mad River Township Schools in Montgomery County. I worked through Middletown City Schools in the Auxiliary Services Program, which is state-funded. And I retired last May from Middletown Schools, and I currently work part-time at John 23rd School. So I think I have a good perspective on education from many points of view. I feel like I've been very lucky to spend 40 years in this career that I love. I feel that I bring a unique perspective because I'm a hands-on person. I've worked with children in the classroom. I do not have experience in finance. I have experience just with the children, with the educational process, and also my school counseling skills, I feel, make me a good person to work with people. I think I have a skill in working with other people. I have been told that I'm very skillful in working with parents, so I would hope that that would be an asset. I would love to be on this school board because I would love to be part of making Middletown schools always improving. My dad always told me, no matter what I did, that there was always room for improvement. So that's what I think about our schools. And I think
I'm going to have to cut you off right there as
Thank you.
We've gone over our 2 minutes.
Thank you very
And
much.
Your dad would appreciate that.
My dad would love it.
All right. Deanna Shores, your opening 2 minutes, please.
Well, good evening, and again, thank you to everyone who came and the host here. I currently serve on the board. I'm in my 4th year. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Deanna Shores. I'm married to Terry Shores. He's a teacher over at the middle school. He's quite wonderful. My children attend Middletown City Schools, and we own our home here. We've dedicated our lives to living here and working to help improve the community, make it a wonderful place to be. Over my time, I feel like I'm a good candidate to better our schools because I've been working to do that. I bring various aspects of experience in terms of I'm a 4th generation educator. I teach college English. My grandmother taught at Antioch. My great grandmother taught at Antioch College, and my grandmother and mother taught for public schools, Princeton and Cincinnati Public. So education is deeply rooted in our hearts and in our minds, ingrained in our homes. In my 4 years, I have over 20 hours of professional board development. I feel like it's really important to understand the role. You come in with different ideas and understand that you have to develop that knack for striking a balance between the things that we think and then the things that the state gets to mandate and all of the things in between. I've encouraged community engagement, and I plan on continuing to increase that in different ways, whether that's parents, whether that's teachers, and organizations, working alongside CBI and other organizations. I think of myself as a connector. So in many ways, I've also been an advocate for teachers and for our students in terms of pushing for quality compensation so we can attract new talent and keep the talent that we have. So those are just various ways, bringing new schools. So we're excited. I'm excited to have the opportunity to, now that we're really digging in, to get another term, an opportunity to serve the community.
All right. Thank you very much. And Chris Urso, your 2 minutes.
Hi. My name is Chris Urso, and I'm excited to be here. I'm also excited to sit next to the fellow candidates. Over this process, you get to know the people, and it's nice to kind of understand who you sit next with in this process, and it's been a good process, and I look forward to kind of seeing where this all goes. But I sit here also as a parent. I have a son and a daughter. I have a 4th grader at Central Academy, and I have a kindergartner at Central Academy, and it's been tough transitioning, having both in school. But I sit here for them. I sit there for their friends, for all the kids who get on a school bus, sit in their parents' car, and they drive to school, and they trust. They trust that the environment that their kids are going to grow up in is going to be the best one, that's going to provide them the opportunities, the exposures that they can just launch into the world and do phenomenal things. I sit here also as an educator. I'm a son of 2 highly esteemed teachers who are retired from Middletown City Schools, a baseball coach and a kindergarten teacher. And I sit here as a husband to a teacher who is beautiful and talented, and we talk at the dinner table around this stuff, around schools and kids. And I sit here also as a teacher myself. If I have to leave early, it's because I have class tonight, and I'm going to have to hustle down Route 4 because I teach at Miami Hamilton. I have an undergraduate, a graduate, and a doctorate in educational leadership. My dissertation was centered on student achievement in high poverty schools. This is my thing. This is my passion. This is what I wake up, think about, and go to bed thinking about. But I also sit here as a Middletonian, somebody who's prideful of where I live, where I wake up and where I go to bed. I sit here hopeful and excited. I listen to the council folks speak, and I listen to these folks speak. And I know the best days for Middletown aren't in the past. I know they're in the future, and I'm committed to being part of that process to see that we do get to where we are capable of going. So thank you.
Well, sufficient to say that we have a bunch of qualified candidates, and it's very impressive. As a graduate of Middletown High School, it does my heart well to know we have such a great group of candidates for City School Board. Now, let me explain to everybody watching at home, there are 6 candidates, but 4 of them are running for 1 seat, and 2 of them, which would be Katie McNeil and Todd Moore, are running for 1 seat. And so it's a little bit, when you go to the voting polls, don't get confused. And it just happens to be alphabetically that Katie McNeil and Todd Moore are running for 1 seat, and then the remaining 4, Michelle Novak, Anita Scheibert, Deanna Shores, and Chris Urso, are running for 2 seats.
3 seats.
3 seats, rather. 3 seats for school board. So if you need a program, you'll know why. So let's get started. And I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to host these forums for a number of elections. And this question, even though the question's been asked many years in the past, today the challenges are even greater, I think. And they're not the same challenges that we had 4 years ago, 8 years ago. So the question, and we'll start with Mr. Moore, we will start with you. What do you see as the 3 greatest challenges facing the Middletown City School District?
Yes, this is a great question. As I've said many times throughout the campaign, I believe number one is leadership. I think that when we look at where the district's at, we must set a clear strategic vision for where we want to go. We have incredible resources here in the community, and what I hope to do is work with others to really make great things happen. When we look at community engagement, which I think is number 2, one of the things that I want to do is I want to work better with our partners. Right now, one of the criticisms is that we have so many programs, what do we do? And I think for me, it comes down to collaboration and alignment. We need more collaboration and alignment to make these things produce outcomes for our kids. And then lastly, I think we still have fiscal challenges. We need to be very concerned about where we're heading. While we do have some new money coming in, and that's a very positive thing, as we go forward, we need to focus on our local economy because those dollars will eventually run out. And I want to make certain that we remain focused on fiscal responsibility.
All right. Ms. Novak, 3 greatest challenges you see as a candidate.
The 3 greatest challenges, I would say the number 1 greatest challenge is the decision-making process here. I think that because of our budgetary constraints, we've been making a lot of decisions just by the seat of our pants. And when we continue to do that, we don't know where we're headed. So I think it's important that we include the community and the stakeholders in coming with a vision so that we can set up goals and we can hold the administration accountable for meeting those goals, for meeting the community's goals. We need to make sure that any new programs have research behind them, they've been proven to work in another school district similar to ours, and that we utilize the best practices so that we can improve the condition of our school district.
Mrs. Scheibert.
I would like to piggyback onto what she says in regard to using the best practices in selecting the programs that are most appropriate for our school. And I think we have to realize in Middletown schools, we have a great diversity of types of learners. And so I think maybe a one-size-fits-all may not always be the answer. I think as a teacher, my ongoing concern is raising the academic achievement of all children. I'm not saying on state test scores because I have a difficult time with that. I'm saying with each child to move them forward from where they are. I think that's something we have to do. And I think that another challenge is improving the collaboration and cooperation between what the administrators are trying to do and what the teachers are trying to do. There needs to be more of a cooperative spirit in that arena.
All right. Mrs. Shores.
I would say the top two things, finance challenges, and we have worked very diligently to balance between what the state says we can and cannot do with unfunded mandates. Also having our public understand that we are still predominantly, there's a good portion of money that we lose or gain depending on how well the city's doing as a whole in terms of taxes. The other one is literacy rates. We know that when students can read, we know when people can read, they do better. They have more success across the board academically. So I think that raising our literacy rates, and that's linked closely to early childhood learning, we are really promoting and pushing for every member of our community to make sure their children go to preschool. And finally, adjusting to the climate and the cultural change and shift in Middletown. As you said, we're not the same 4, 8, 10 years ago. If you've been here in the district for 10 to 20 years, things look a lot different. And certainly we have to be able to respond. I'm kind of going back to Michelle's point that we have to be ready to respond not just to this crisis that's happening now, but to anything. We have to be prepared and have a plan. And we are working to do that, but I am looking forward to continuing that work.
Thank you. Mr. Urso, challenges that you see.
First and foremost, I think all of us agree the role of a school is to prepare young people to transition into adulthood. And I think any school district, and especially Middletown, we have to do a better job at times at that. So achievement, we have to instill those building blocks early on. You talked about literacy. Research shows that literacy is imperative. If you want kids to succeed in high school, they need to be able to read as early as kindergarten, first, second, third grade. The game's changed. I told you my mom taught kindergarten. Kindergarten is one time water tables and sand tables and toys, which was great because it was a transition piece. Now that's no longer here, and we have to adjust because the time has changed. Also equally important is we've had a large amount of turnover in the district over the last few years, especially last year, as well noted, and there's a lot of reasons for it, one being teacher contract, morale could be another explanation, retirement is another facet. But I know at my son's school, there's been 4 principals in 4 years of him being in school, and you have to have a level of continuity to build something and to grow from that. And ultimately, and I think the city council candidates mentioned it too, image. I think the community, there are some phenomenal things going on in this district. I meet with high school students on a daily basis, helping them with a nonprofit, and there are good things and we need to advertise that more.
All right, thank you, Mr. Urso.
Thanks.
And Mrs. McNeil, final word on this question.
Final word maybe sums up all the good points that you've made. I believe that, and our Dr. Sam Eisen, our school superintendent, often uses the 3 words, rigor, relevance, and relationship. And those 3 might sum up the challenges that we have as a community. We believe those are the building blocks for student achievement, student success. And the relationship building is all the things you've mentioned with the community, with parents, with staff, with administration. The relevance, the dynamics of change seem to get faster and faster. And we need to help be engaging our students in 21st century learning skills. And by that, I mean they need to be learning to embrace the technology. They need to be learning solid academics. They need to be learning how to develop their relationships and how to handle the changes that they're going to have in their lifetime of family and community and workplace. So those would be my
All right, that's going to end that question. I'm going to go on, and it's kind of interesting that none of you had said, and this isn't a trick question at all, but one of the challenges is testing. And I've gotten a couple of questions already from the audience here about testing. It's made national news from the president talking about testing. So let's approach the question about testing. And from the studio audience, we've had people ask, should the school year be longer to improve performance? So that could be one topic. But overall, let's talk about testing. And Ms. Novak, I'm going to begin with you. And where would you like to see testing of students on a federal and state level? And I'm going to follow up, and what about testing of teachers? Because that's going on now as well. And it seems to be that the tests then are not, I'm not sure which one of you said it, but you said one size fits all. It appears that the tests are one size fits all, which may be unfair to a community like Middletown if you try to compare that, let's say, with a school like New Albany. So let's talk a little bit about and explore the testing idea. Your feelings on testing for both students and teachers, and that's a loaded question. And Ms. Novak, you like to talk, so do I. So
1 minute.
You've got 1 minute to
Thank
answer this
you.
question and solve all the testing issues.
Well, I do have 4 children in the district, and every year it's more and more testing. And I'm not sure really how it's benefiting my children. I don't think that it's a career field when they graduate to be good testers. I think they need to be learning more in the classroom. I think they need to spend more time with the teacher teaching them about math and science and reading and English and the core things that they need to learn. But it's just moving to spending so much time on the testing. So I don't support all the testing that we're doing. I think there is a need for it, but it has to be in its place. It can't be our goal as a district to raise that score. Our goal as a district is to meet the needs of our students, to help them to reach their potential. And that's what our programs should be geared toward. And I believe that if we are gearing our programs toward that, then it will inevitably improve our testing scores. If that's our goal, also maybe we need to look at teacher retention and see how we can keep our qualified teachers and our new teachers that are highly qualified and we put through training.
All right. So now, Mrs. Scheibert, you have 1 minute to solve all the ills of testing. And again, it's a loaded question, but just what are your thoughts on testing for students and teachers?
I believe that collecting data was the goal to begin with. And I think that's a good thing, to measure individual students' achievement by a consistent measure in a classroom over time. And there are plenty of these kinds of measures that are out there that are proven to be reliable and easy to administer in a classroom. Why the state decided that they should standardize this, I'm not sure. I said before that I kind of believe that this testing situation has been hijacked by political forces, and I don't think it's to the students' advantage. I witnessed children taking the PARCC test last year, and it was a torturous thing. The length of time, I'm not quite sure what anybody knows after that PARCC testing. The amount of money spent on materials that then were thrown out after they were in use for 1 year, to me is unconscionable. I don't know how this was let to slide through, but the people who suffered most from this are not the ones who decided that this should be.
Mrs. Shores.
Well, thank God that standardized testing doesn't rule all things. I was a horrible tester, but here I sit before you with several degrees from top universities, because along the way people understood and poured into me. Education was a lifelong thing. It was something, so certainly standardized testing to me is horrid. The way that that we've focused on it. As a college instructor, the results are, I can't really in 1 minute explain to you the disappointment, the disservice that we've done to our students by binding them in such a way. But what is measured, and one of my favorite quotes, what is measured and clearly defined does get done. So I agree with Anita that I think maybe the sentiment is that we want our children to be able to compete no matter whether they came from Middletown or Mason or New Albany, whatever they are. I get that. But we have certainly done a disservice the way it's set up, and that I will legislate and do everything I can in the power here at our district that we don't lose focus, and that ultimately those test scores will rise. I do agree with Michelle when we focus on that student learning.
Mr. Urso.
And I mean, echoing a lot what people are saying, I'm not so much anti-test. I'm glad that I took a driver's test to be able to be equipped with a driver's license to drive. And so I think there's a time and a place to test. I think when it's the only currency to evaluate if somebody's capable, I think that's when you put too much stock into something. And so even beyond that, if the test is the sole mean or measure of learning, then it takes away the art of it, the enjoyment of it. And I see people in college too who don't really enjoy learning anymore because it's all about some assessment piece. And so that joy of becoming more human, more creative, more capable has been sapped. And I think as a society, we have to trouble that. We have to ask questions about that, because my daughter has 13 years before they're going to enter this world and be able to do something. And it's our job to ensure those 13 years are going to adequately prepare them, not just to take a test, which there is a time and a place for, but to be able to be creative and excited about their life.
Mrs. McNeil, on to you.
Thank you. Testing is a measure of a student's understanding and performance, and it's important. We need to, I would like to see, when we come online with the new middle school and the high school renovation, that we look at a year-round schooling program. Testing can be used for diagnostics, and we need to be able to understand when a child needs intervention. And a year-round program can give us those periods of intervention at a sooner point than later, at the end of the semester. And there's also the retention of a student's knowledge after a summer being off. So it also is it's an accountability piece. That's why we see so much now. Those in the ranks of education need to be talking to legislators to be realistic in what their understanding is of testing and what the accountability measures they're looking for. It is a measure of a teacher. As a teacher myself, if a student didn't do well on a test, I felt badly that I hadn't taught that student correctly. So it's a way for a teacher to understand their engagement with the child in learning the material. It's a measure of expectations for understanding and relevance of our student learning.
Mr. Moore?
Like many others, I share frustration with standardized testing. I think one of the frustrations for me is that it's changed the culture of learning. When the overwhelming number of tests that we've had to endure in the district, I think kids are exhausted. And I get this through Facebook messages and other folks asking me, what's your position on testing? Clearly, like many others, it's been overdone at this point. So I was looking into this. I'm excited that they are making some changes at the state level. I've seen House Bill 7, which puts a safe harbor provision in things, so it's not as punitive now with testing. We know that things are changing. There'll be new requirements coming forward, but like many others, it's exhausting our students. The other thing that I've tried to do, though, tying this back again to the work at CBI and the funds that I fought so hard for here with the 21st Century Grant, was that it allows additional learning opportunities. That's 15 hours a week. And it allows us to meet what I would consider summer learning loss in the district. So that's opportunities now that we have money for after school programs and parental engagement programs that we didn't have before to strengthen standardized test scores.
All right, we'll end it right there. But I want to do a follow-up for all of you. And I mentioned about the teachers. All the teachers are evaluated. And if you're a new teacher, you have a specific time period, I think it's 5 years, in which to get approved as a real teacher, for lack of a better term. And you talk about students being exhausted. What about the teachers and the staff? And my question would be, with all the standardized testing that is implemented upon teachers, should it be the standardized tests that determine if a teacher is worthy or not of teaching, or should it be that building's administrator or the school administration? Should that be left to local, as a manager in a business would be, or is it going to be left to someone coming from California, by example, observing a teacher for a class, looking at a lesson plan? Where do you see judging and evaluating teachers? And I'm going to start, Mrs. Scheibert. That question goes to you. So let's talk about how do we evaluate teachers? How do we keep the good ones? And how do we improve those not performing? And whose responsibility?
Well, the new teachers have quite a rigorous plan to follow. And as I understand it, a lot of it has to do with partnering with other people, with mentors, and working with them. So it's not just a one-piece thing. I have not seen the teacher test that is given at different times, but if it's based on theories of education, then I think it's a good thing, but not the total piece. I don't think your teaching boils down to what you remember of certain techniques. I know people who can shine on the teaching test and get into the classroom and cannot relate to children at all. I don't like the idea of leaving everything, the teacher's total evaluation to a building principal or one person, because there's some bias that happens there, because every person doesn't appreciate the value of different teaching styles. So I think it has to be a combination of things. I don't think standardized tests by themselves are horrible, but they have to be coupled with other measures too.
All right, thank you. Question to you, Mrs. Shores.
I will piggyback on Anita's point about the bias. I always kind of didn't understand how we can, or how we should maybe cycle out people on how teachers get evaluated, because we're people and we're human beings, and I don't know how we can completely disassociate ourselves with those emotions. Standardized testing is going to, when it comes to the educators themselves, is going to compromise many things. Because you cannot create or develop a plan that's going to fit, that's going to accurately identify what those teachers have to meet. My husband sees 144 plus students a day. He has to deal with each class as a different type of class. You have over a certain percentage who have certain challenges. There's no one way that we're going to be able to find one test that's going to say, well, all of these different teachers take this test, where you place, or even on those scores, because then that focus becomes, again, where it has been a lot for, as we see as a country, on the test score. And then when I get a kid in my classroom in college who tells me they have no interest or they have no concept of what to develop or write on their paper, then we're in trouble.
Okay, Mr. Urso, on to you.
I think to just use one measure isn't wise. I think what you've said, I think you have to have multiple measures. And teaching is an art in the sense to where, like, to go and have a robot or a computer teach you, you lose a lot of what the human connection, the human compassion, the context. I think context is significant. That when different kids are growing up in different classes and different circumstances, to take one measure and not consider the richness of each person's opportunity, you lose sight of everything that's going on. I don't think there's no easy answer. It's definitely not one that you can conceive in 60 seconds that would relate to everything that goes into it.
Okay. Mr. McNeil, on to you.
As a public school district, we must have highly qualified teachers in our schools. That is our commitment to parents and to the community. And we're fortunate that we have that. So teacher evaluation, I mean, everybody's evaluating a job. And there are many things to be looking at. But the testing for teachers, I think, was the key to your question. Is that background, their ethics, their understanding of student engagement, the methods, how different ways they can reach and teach children, whether it's technology or learning styles. Those are measures of knowledge that we have for our teachers. So, if I can do it, anybody can do it. As a science teacher, high school, I substituted in the district for 10 years before I came on the board 20 years ago. And content knowledge is very important, and that is tested for teachers starting in the profession.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Moore.
Well, tying funds to standardized tests, I think, is a very poor choice. I think the federal government's gotten that wrong over the years. I would favor much more local control, but that's not where we're at politically. But when we think about what happens in a classroom and the dynamic interaction between kids and a teacher, overstating what happens on a standardized test puts us at a real competitive disadvantage. We know that we're responsible for having quality teachers, but when we look at what is the outcome that this particular teacher has provided to our students, standardized test really doesn't get behind all the other factors such as the socioeconomic status, the curriculum that we are teaching. Also, whether or not that teacher has had significant experience. So, like many others, this question, I think, I would agree with most of my colleagues here, is that using standardized tests for teacher evaluation, I think it is not a good measure for the quality of staff that we have here in the district.
Final word to you, Ms. Novak.
Thank you. The standardized testing results show that there are other things linked to the success of students other than what's happening in the classroom. We cannot base our teacher evaluations primarily on things that they have absolutely no control over. It's not fair. So how should we evaluate our teachers? Well, when I was the executive director of a nonprofit, I sat down with my employees and we looked over their job description, and we talked about what their goals would be that year. And that's how we set up these evaluations. We can talk to our teachers. They know what their jobs are, and we can set goals each year, and then we can see how they're meeting those goals.
I'm going to dovetail my next question into something you said about goals and achieving those goals. This has to do with discipline. And the discipline in schools has changed, well, from when you and I went to school. And it's not just germane to Middletown. It is just what it is. But in business, discipline is still there. You have to show up for work. You have to accomplish those goals that are set for you in your job description. You have to achieve certain items, whether it's in sales or manufacturing or whatever it is you may be doing. You have certain goals and objectives that have to be reached. Now, as a school board member, what can you do, and what can you do as a school board member to act upon getting the students and the parents having their responsibilities and accountabilities? How can you bring that together to improve the academic performance of those students who are not achieving as to where the underachievers, let's say? So to wrap it up, and I'm going to start with you, Mrs. Shores, how do you as a board member increase the accountability of the parent and the student to work together to improve discipline and create a better learning environment?
Well, that question boils down to policy, which is one of the main roles of a board member. I spent 25 plus hours with Ms. McNeil on a committee to review and make sure that that policy was in step with the state of Ohio. So what that boils down to now as a next step is kind of an opportunity to say parents and community, everyone has to understand their role and their responsibility. And I think anything from our police department to our city council members, understanding the role and the responsibility of each individual is crucial to anything working successfully, and that includes our schools. And so when I think about our parents, they need to understand when we say bullying, we need to make sure we identify and make and define clearly what constitutes as bullying, what is the policy for that, and then follow through with that and be consistent. And we have to support our administrators. And the administrators have to support our teachers when they do so. We have to raise the bar of expectation for our students, and that boils down to letting their parent or their guardian know what these rules and expectations are and what their role and responsibility is.
Now, Mr. Urso, on to you.
I think schools are into relationships, and you have to build strong relationships. I mean, school to parent, parent to the school and the community itself. I think you have to build bonds, trusting bonds between people. And when people know that you see them, that you're there for them, you're committed to them, then behavior coincides with that. When a student's in school and you find limited relevance to your future, or if you don't sense that this is going to yield a tangible result for you, or if you're just not seen or pushed to the side, then I think that's when things start falling off the rails. Things have to be pertinent. We have to, as a community, create curriculum that's relevant, that's going to prepare, and ultimately it's the relationship that we build. And I think that comes from the school. It's not our responsibility to go in and tell people how to parent. I think that's an overreach, and that's not something our society warrants us to do. But what we can do is create environments that compel people that this makes sense to do well because it's going to yield something for me, my family, and my future. And I think that's something that we can do better.
Mrs. McNeil, on to you.
In Middletown schools, we use a program of positive behavior supports. And in this way, we help children understand the proper behavior for whatever they're doing in their school. And then we need to extend it. We have working with a program to help parents understand what the child is being expected to be doing in school and how they can support that. It's consistency between home and school as we are helping this young person grow. We have individual educational plans, IEPs. Right now we use them for special education students. That's where the parent, often the counselor, the teacher, and the child are involved with knowing what their expectations are and what they need to be accomplishing and how they can do it to work with their individual needs. That can be done for every child, the gifted child, who needs to know what the boundaries are, what the expectations are, that they can push themselves. The responsibility and accountability were the two words you used. We need to start at the day one to teach responsibility, whether it's to bring back that library book, to handle that computer correctly, to respect your teacher.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. McNeil. Mr. Moore.
Yes, it's a very important question for our community. One of the things I've tried to do is to approach it in the earlier years, particularly before students mature and move through our district. Oftentimes, by the time they get out to the high school, they've developed certain behaviors, certain attitudes that I think oftentimes is disruptive in our schools. So one of the things I've tried to do, and again, one of the things that I'm very proud about with the 21st Century Grant at CBI is that it does provide for youth development and parental engagement dollars. And there, what we're talking about is a whole range of activities to engage our kids after school. Right now, we really don't have that. After the bell at 3 o'clock, kids go home. Sometimes they're literally in the streets kicking rocks. We need to do better in our community. So these are programs, the Community Building Institute now will have 2 programs at Creekview and Rosa Parks, and this will keep our kids engaged so that they're excited about school and limit those behavioral problems that we see in the later years in high school.
Ms. Novak, on to you.
Well, I've seen that the school has already implemented like parent engagement sessions, and I've heard great reviews from the parents that go. But the problem is that people don't go. And instead of taking the approach where we throw our hands up and say, oh, another program that's not working, our parents just don't want to get engaged, we need to look at why they're not coming. One of the reasons that was cited for people not participating in our preschool program was transportation issues, and it's just a partial day where a lot of people couldn't accommodate that in their work schedules. The parent engagement sessions, I've been talking to people, same thing, transportation. Dayton Public Schools, they had bus vouchers. They gave every parent that showed up $5 to help them pay for their transportation. And so we can look at and ask those questions, well, why aren't our parents participating? Also, I think it's important that we bring parents and students into the decision-making process, because if they're helping us to make decisions about their education, about their children's education, then they're likely to be more invested in doing well and in participating. Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Right in a minute. Okay. Last word on this, Mrs. Scheibert.
Okay. I agree with all these things that people say, and I'm not sure that the key to this problem starts at the school board level. I think the school board has to set policy. I think we can provide parent groups, which we should, and make it easy for them to come. But I'm telling you, I think the whole thing is key at the classroom level. If you have a teacher who shows, if a kid thinks that a teacher cares about them, they will do what you need them to do. And an example I have is, I've had many over the years. One little boy I had, his dad belonged to the Dayton Outlaws, and he somehow he felt important in that school. We helped him to feel important, so he got his big brother to come, and his brother brought me a book to read that he had bought at a used school book sale, and he thought it had some stories in there that I might like to read on a 6th grade level. You catch people because you care about them. Another young man I have who hates school, he will tell you this: every minute that he spends in school, he hates it. But he hung his test on my computer screen one day when I wasn't in the room. He got a 94. Because I care.
All right, we're going to have to end it right there. And unfortunately, our time, or fortunately, our time is for allotted questions has expired. So we're going to start with closing statements. And Mr. Urso, you get to lead us off with a 1-minute close.
Thank you again for everyone for coming. It's exciting to see a bunch of familiar faces and unknown faces to be a part of a conversation. And I think ultimately that's what a school board's about. It's about having a conversation about what's best for the community and for, most importantly, the young people that are a part of it. And again, they have 13 years, and we're in charge in some form as a community to make sure those are the best. And so again, I enjoy this. I enjoy these kinds of conversations, which is crazy because it's stressful at the same time, but I enjoy this because I see the importance. I grew up in an environment that allowed me to kind of move through this world and have opportunities. And And that's why I sit here now, is that I feel compelled to be a part of that process for this generation, for my kids' generation, to ensure that their future is a happy one, that they wake up in the morning, they get in the car, and they go to some place that they enjoy being at. And ultimately, if I can be part of that process for them, then I would look back on my life and feel good about that. So I appreciate your time and your attentiveness and your questions tonight. So
Thank you, Mr. Urso. Mrs. McNeil.
Sum it up. Learning is fun. It's exciting. I've enjoyed learning about my role as a school board member for the last 20 years. I'm looking forward to continue learning, to be able to think about the questions that we need to be asking to have the best curriculum programs that we can have for our students to be successful. I believe there's so many ways to learn that we need to find out which child learns by having their hands on things and help our students understand more career awareness. With my work at Butler Tech, I just saw kids who didn't like school suddenly just change their attitude because they were learning some skills and they were building their self-confidence. So that's an exciting thing when you can turn a student around. I think we've had some really good alternative types of programs to engage our students, keep them in school. Our goal is to keep them to graduate. I would like to continue to be on the school board. I am very interested in the facilities plan. I'm so excited. I appreciate the community support in so many ways for our schools.
And we'll end it right there. Mr. Moore.
Well, first, thank you. Thank you very much. I believe the key to our economic development is that we raise student achievement in our district. If we're going to move our city forward, strengthen our middle class, improve our business climate and our culture, we must raise student achievement. I've been a fighter for our kids. I've tried to put my talent and my time to work to help our children here in the community. I have raised some money, but it's not the money. It's the strategy that goes behind those dollars that I think is going to have the biggest impact. And I look forward to working with all of our community partners and really trying to make an impact and raise student achievement over the next year. Thank you very much.
Ms. Novak, your closing thoughts.
Thank you. My husband and I moved to Middletown 8 years ago because we looked around, we looked at different schools, we tried homeschooling, we tried private schools. We love Middletown. This is the perfect community for us. We chose to be here, and I want to invest everything that I have in helping to build this community. My skills, we have a house here, my children go to school here from preschool through high school, and it means a lot to me that we do well. And so I think that we need a vision, goals for our school district. We need to bring in our community to participate, our businesses, our nonprofit organizations, our parents, our teachers, our students need to all be involved in the decision-making process. We need to make the most effective and the most efficient decisions through choosing things that are well-tested, best practices, things that have been done before that are successful in districts with diversity that are similar to ours. We also need our board members to understand what their role is, that we're facilitators. It's not about us and what we want, it's about you. It's about our community, and we just mediate between that. So we bring in your best ideas, and we help to implement those in our district. So I just want to say I really appreciate this whole process and the opportunity to meet all of the candidates. It's really been a wonderful experience, so I hope to be working with all of them in the future.
All right, thank you. Mrs. Scheibert.
All right. Well, in my closing statement, I can't remember if I said this, but I am a native of Middletown, and I've always been very proud of that fact, but sometimes it's not in vogue to be proud of being from Middletown. But I am, and going through this process has pushed me out of my comfort zone, but it has also made me see how many people really care about this town, and that makes me so happy. That makes me so excited. I see only good things ahead. I would love to be on the school board. I am a hard worker, I will tell you that. I can bring my educational experience to work at this. However, If it turns out that I am not chosen, I promise you that I will still be involved with the children of Middletown in one way or another. So I appreciate your time and your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Shores, final word.
All right, so I am incredibly vested in this community. Again, married to a teacher who is from here. He is a product of Middletown City Schools. I attended Middletown City Schools for a while. But also, in my last 4 years, I have worked tremendously hard at building and solidifying some relationships out in the community that we are seeing growing and flourishing. I'm so excited to know that I have such a great relationship with our law enforcement, with our city manager and the city council members, with everyday grassroots community members, with parents and families. I'm very well connected in terms of I love relationship, I love people, and I love education. I've also taken the time to try to mold myself into really actualizing that role as a board member. So I'd like another term, an opportunity to continue some of that same work and that growth. In my professional life, I am a connector. It is my job to secure 12 aspects of our community, bring those people together to work together to solve some of the city's problems. I think that makes me a prime candidate to continue to build those kind of relationships over time. I live here, I work here, I play here, I shop here.
All right.
So
Thank
I hope
you
to
very
have another
much.
opportunity.
So for all of you who are watching, these folks for both cities, for both city school board and for city council are doing everything they can to earn your vote. The best thing you can do for them is on Tuesday, November 3rd, go to the polls, make your decisions, and reward these people for all their hard work and all their efforts to improve our community. I'm Lenny Robinson on behalf of the Chamber of Commerce serving Middletown, Monroe, and Trenton. Thanks for watching, and remember to vote on Tuesday, November 3rd. Good night.